Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the quick-fire demand generation and ABM video series, or at least that's what we aim for. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Freya Ward, who is the Global Growth Director at Headley Media. Now, that is a big, big title, Freya. What does that mean? Why don't you give a little background and intro about you and kind of what your roles look like at Headley Media?
Yeah, of course. No worries, Sam. So I am the Global Growth Director at Headley Media. Interesting title that I think quite a few people have started to adopt. So for us, that kind of means that I look after our sales and marketing department. So I'm the head of those two departments to try and create some kind of cohesive alignment between sales and marketing inside of Headley Media. A little bit of background about me. So I started my career in the marketing world. I worked agency side for a few years, started actually as an apprentice and worked my way up through the ranks. And I joined the dark side of sales 6.5 years ago. And I haven't looked back since.
Nice. Well, that's almost like the opposite to what most people do. They start in sales, can't hack it, and then move to marketing. It's quite unique that you've transitioned from well, I wouldn't say we're the dark side, would we? I'd always say sales is the dark side, but it's great that you're loving it. So this is going to pan out quite interestingly. So to run you, Freya, through the rules and the viewers, Freya in this case will be given a set of questions to respond to all about ABM and Demand Gen. The questions have come from or been based on the data we collected at mixed reality rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest headaches and challenges are. But as I like to say now, Freya, we're big time. I'm joking, but we are beginning to incorporate previous guest questions into the mix. So Freya, are you ready for question 1?
I am. I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay, cool. We need some sound effects here, don't we? We'll get Jackie to add some. But question 1 was from Sarab Sanghi at RGT Solutions, and he asked, what is the right time for an organization to adopt an ABM approach?
So from my point of view, I think the best time to adopt an ABM approach is when you truly understand your ICP, so your ideal customer profile. Presumably by that point, you would have had some really successful wins from your customers and from prospects. You know what your quickest route to market is, what success looks like, the clear defining factors. So who are they? What are their job titles? What company size are they in? Not only your ideal ICP, but also considering the hidden buyers. There's a lot of talk about hidden buyers, certainly within LinkedIn, within different communities, Slack channels and stuff at the moment. For me, hidden buyers are those that have a seat at the table and they form part of the decision making when purchasing software solutions, whatever it might be, your product, but you aren't necessarily talking directly to those. So you have to have a really clear understanding of who your ICP is and who the hidden buyers are when you execute an ABM campaign. When you're building out the full strategy piece, the most important thing for me, and I think we're going to dive into it, I've had a sneak preview at some of the questions that you're going to share with me, is also around sales and marketing alignment. So anytime I speak to one of my clients and they have not seen success from an ABM campaign, it's because sales and marketing are speaking a different language around not necessarily who the accounts are, but where that account list has come from. Is it a wish list? Is it a blue sky thinking list? Is it your ideal end goal? Or is it realistically a reflection of your current customers and where you can see success? So understanding the alignment between sales and marketing, what the definitions are of a lead through various stages of the journey, and what action should be taken next. That's when I believe you should execute an ABM or ABX campaign.
Nice. And just one quick follow on, because I know, as you said, some of the questions coming up will unpack this a bit further. But how long, or are there any kind of let's start with that question. How long does it take for you to kind of identify your ICP, or what kind of steps are there to starting that? Would you start, I don't know, if you were start joining an organization tomorrow, what would be your kind of first steps, and who would you be working with to kind of outline your ICP?
So there's a few different places, and a kind of how long is a piece of string when it's how long does it take to define your ICP, because the ICP for most of the companies I work with is ever evolving. If we look in the tech space, we look at the Technology Decision Making Committee, the changes in the last 5 years, we've seen procurement and legal and finance starting to get involved in the last few years around technology purchases, more so than ever before. So one thing to note is your ICP is constantly evolving. So it isn't a task. It shouldn't be seen as a tick box exercise, and instead it should be a feedback loop and a continuous exercise within the business. If I was joining a company tomorrow and I was joining as a marketing professional, I would go and sit on the sales floor. I would talk to the sales professionals, who are the clients where you see success? What are the kind of conversations you want to have more of? Who are the most painful accounts that we've worked with, and what is the reason why? Is it unique to that account? Is it the individual that you're working with? Are there gatekeepers and roadblocks along the way? Or is there misalignment between the person? Everyone likes to be sold to differently. So sometimes there's misalignment between the account manager that's been put on an account versus someone else within the team. Some people like to talk really creatively. Other people like to be very direct. So sit with the sales team, understand what their absolute wish list is. Don't overpromise at this stage. That's really, really key. But immerse yourself. Listen to sales calls. See if they can record some of the conversation. See if you can get in a boardroom with your ideal customers, the advocates for your brand, the ones you might have case studies and testimonials with. Pick up the phone and talk to them. Do a lot of research, internal research, and then obviously speak to your marketing department as well. So where do they see success when they're handing leads over to sales? Where do they see that they're pushed back? There's so much information that can come within your CRM and your database, but huge volumes of data without context is completely no value at all. And you can also use AI tools for this as well. AI is a great use case when it is evaluating data and spitting out results for you to then interpret and understand and dig into a little bit more deeper. Bit of a long-winded answer for you, Sam, but I think speak to sales, speak to marketing. Obviously, you need to understand the strategy plan for the business from the senior leadership team as well, and speak to your customers, speak to your prospects, speak to those who are advocates for your company to really understand and unpick what are the demographics, but then equally, what are the behavioral insights of these individuals? Why do they stay with you, and why did they purchase your product in the first place?
Freya, I think that is a beautiful answer. I think that's going to end up being another kind of good short clip we can use afterwards. But we must carry on. We must plow forward. The next question that came in was from Matt Conway at TX1 Networks, and this will be a good one. He asked, how do you get those healthy and honest conversations going between sales and marketing? So having you've been on both sides of the spectrum, what's your best advice? And I mean, you kind of somewhat answered it there, but yeah, take it away.
I think from my perspective, it's an ever-evolving conversation that needs to have trust and honesty both ways. So I would start by addressing the elephant in the room. So is it that your definitions are off, or is it that, again, if you're joining a new company, you've got the opportunity to be like, what really frustrated you about the marketing person before me? Speaking to those salespeople and showing them that you are here to make a change, but you can't promise everything. So being realistic about expectation setting, creating a feedback loop, and just investing time in communicating with sales and marketing professionals. More often than not, in my experience, B2B marketers talk to me about the frustrations around alignment. And when you unpack it, it's often assumption based. So marketing assumes that sales know what to do when contacts are passed over to them, or sales assume that marketing don't know what it's like to be a salesperson. Show them. This message goes out to salespeople as well. Show them how difficult it is to engage with your ICP and your target audience. Get them involved in shadowing and things like that. It's all about time investment. And then over time, as a marketer, you can identify quick wins to help your salespeople. So sales enablement pieces, or just, listening to them. But actually doing some actions off the back of a conversation. I think quite often the assumption is we tell marketing what we want, but marketing don't do anything off the back of it, or marketing professionals are being expected to hit KPIs that feel unrealistic. Communicate that. So before you accept that these are your goals, don't be dictated to around KPIs and metrics, especially when it's vanity metrics. If you don't feel that lead gen should be defined on volume and CPL alone, and you feel that it should be done on micro goals, next steps, engagement with more content and things like that, you've got a seat at the table. So exercise your right to communicate and build that trust so that there is that honest communication. When I speak to, we actually had this conversation inside Headley Media recently, because we have a marketing department, we have a sales team. We sat down and we weren't getting great feedback from our sales team to marketing about why leads were being pushed back. So they were pushing leads back, but they weren't giving that extra bit of context. And one of the salespeople actually put their hand up and said, well, I don't want to be like one of those bad salespeople that just says the quality is rubbish or they weren't a good fit. I don't want to be that. So I'm not communicating that extra bit of information. And our marketing team turned around and said, I'm not precious about the data that I'm providing. I've not gone out and sourced it myself. I've not put my heart and soul into sourcing that contact because I feel it's an ideal fit. It's the reaction and the response to a campaign that I've set live or something similar. So if you don't give me that feedback, I can't learn and I can't optimize. Just having that honest conversation, creating an environment where the salespeople feel that they can comfortably talk and provide feedback. And it's not acceptable to just say, marketing leads are rubbish. You have to give more because then you get more out of it. And we've actually seen a huge increase in the quality of leads that are coming through. We've identified gaps where we've identified the opportunity to tighten up a sequence so that there is a quicker time period that marketing leads are being communicated to by sales and a quicker time period for sales to pass them back. And for further nurture, with the clarity that the salesperson that was assigned that lead at the point of pushing it back will get that lead back should they follow these next steps. So it's really just about breaking it down, having those conversations, getting the right people in the right room and showcasing the value of sales providing feedback to marketing, but then also marketing providing feedback to sales.
There is so much gold there. And also, I think for anyone that's struggling right now, because I know there are a few, some people have, when we collect information for questions to ask, like a lot of people are asking, like, how do you get marketing and sales to stop operating in their individual silos? It's like you said, that it's a time thing. You can't build trust from like one meeting. So yeah, that kind of consistency, and persistence to stay at it seems super relevant. And also, yeah, I noticed that as well. Like if I source data for like a sales sprint for someone, I will put at the end of it, like, do give me feedback, like tell me if this is rubbish, but I guess that probably isn't clear to the salesperson, is it, who probably thinks that you've put your heart and soul into that. So it's awesome to have this conversation with you because you've got that other side perspective that most marketers or most just salespeople don't have. Right, we must plow on. So the next question 3, was from Brandon Alisoglu at Image Trend. He leads the ABM there, and he asked, and this is probably right up your street, what are some ABM email / like cold outreach best practices to follow? And another follow-on question he had when we caught up was like, how wide would you push an email marketing campaign? Like, I guess from the form of like how many stakeholders at a company maybe would you reach out to? And then the third part to this, so it's a big old question, is like when it comes to scoring, just out of curiosity, if you even score email opens, for example, how do you score your emails? If you've got all of that, I'll let you kind of roll with it, but it's a big question.
I think ABM best practices are, for me, when you're developing that ICP, when you're developing that target account list, however you're approaching ABM, it's that alignment at the beginning. So avoiding assumption, all that we've already talked about in this conversation, that is the key to that is the biggest best practice I can give. When you are then executing a campaign, there are best practices out there. There are heaps of resources that document the best things to do. Some of them contradict one another. But one of the things I would say is when you are in that testing phase, when you're looking to evaluate whether ABM is successful or if it's for you, you have to let it run its course, because I think quite often people will tweak and optimize and A/B test and not actually allow something to run over a duration that is fair to evaluate success. As marketing professionals, we want to get it right and we want to optimize. And where we see a spike in something or engagement, we have a tendency to throw ourselves into that and be like, that's it, that's the secret, that's the bit that's going to work. And then we, reflect that across the entire campaign, and it doesn't work for everybody. We have to remember that although we can generalize a lot when it comes to ABM, when it comes to ICP, when it comes to creating a target audience and campaigns and everything else, we are selling to people at the end of the day, and people are going to react and respond differently. It's also going to come into your specific company, looking at your sales cycle, looking at the length of that, looking at your deal size, your average order size, average order value for an ABM campaign, for example, all of those different factors. If you're doing it for a low value product versus a high value product, you need to evaluate that differently. It may be that if you are looking at a high value product, that the volume of decision makers and the volume of people that you need to influence is much larger than that of a smaller value. I can authorize a subscription of 2K in our company tomorrow. But if I was looking to displace our current CRM system, I would need to get buy-in from multiple decision makers. It would probably take quite a few months. There would be lots of other considerations that come into it. So remembering that when you're running and executing a marketing campaign, when you're doing any kind of ABM, be that ABM to one, ABM to many, ABM to few, or just simply loading a target account list into your campaign to give it more of a focus than just white space, don't forget about the product that you're promoting or the solution or the service that you're promoting. What do those decision makers have to do to displace their current provider and replace it with you would be my advice around best practice when setting up any ABM campaign. That kind of addresses your other questions, but I do want to dive into vanity metrics. So looking at things like opens, clicks, through to form fills and things like that. I work in the lead generation space. So Headley Media sells leads to B2B technology companies. So I am very much focused on metrics around leads. So actual form fills and even a step further than that, consented leads, because we operate with non-mandatory consent, which means we scrub everyone that doesn't say they want to hear from your company explicitly. So I have a real bugbear around opens, clicks, etc. I used to, when I was agency side, I used to run campaigns for our clients that were around email promos and things, and people always cared about the audience reach. But now working at Headley, where we guarantee the lead volume, the metrics around audience reach and circulation and things like that are not so relevant. So I always challenge when a publisher, for example, if you're running a campaign with a publisher or you're running a campaign on LinkedIn as a platform, or where they talk more so about reach is very different. Potential reach is very different to impressions. Impressions are very different to form fills. So it's really about understanding what the tactic is and what the metric should be for that particular tactic. If you are looking at overall audience reach, but you're purchasing leads, for example, your metrics are off. Because I could tell you that I can engage 2.5 million IT managers in North America tomorrow for a campaign for you, but you're not going to buy 2.5 million leads, and I'm not going to promote your content to 2.5 million readers in order to generate, 1,000 leads or 5,000 leads. So that reach metric becomes kind of irrelevant. When you're running and executing your own marketing campaigns, then of course you need to look at opens, you need to look at clicks, you need to look, is it even worthwhile me running this campaign? Are they engaging with it? Evaluate the best practices. So, in the B2B tech world, it takes something like 17 touch points with your brand before someone even recognizes you. If you're sending out to a cold list, if you're running an email campaign to a cold list, then they don't know who you are, and think about how noisy their inboxes are. So if you get no opens on your first send, we tend to see from our marketing campaigns at Headley Media, 4th, 5th, 6th email in a workflow is where engagement really starts peaking. The initial ones, it's quite slow, especially if someone hasn't heard from us before, especially if we've canvassed a list from LinkedIn or other platforms to run Headley Media's marketing campaigns, not our client campaigns, but for our campaigns. Our expectation, we benchmark against ourselves rather than the industry, because that's the only way you can really optimize. If you're benchmarking against an industry average open rate or click-through rate, that could be based on someone that's been marketing to this audience for a long time, that has a well-established brand. You're setting yourself up for failure. But if you benchmark against yourself and constantly strive for improvement, then I think you start building out a bit of a pattern.
This is awesome, Freya. So all about looking inwards, like me summarizing it in my caveman brain, more of a mindset shift, right? When you're running outreach campaigns with an ABM focus. So you're not trying to spray and pray and capture the 2% of buyers that are in market. It's like, you have your focus. It's going to take time. And that overflows to who your target audience are. It's not a magic number. Hey, we reach out to 5 people at each company. It's like, it depends entirely on the size of the buying committee. And what was the term you used earlier? Hidden buyers, dark buyers.
Hidden buyers.
Hidden buyers, right? Okay. And then email attribution. Quickly, so if you can, I know we're overrunning slightly, but so 5 or 6 emails is typically where you see the biggest uplift. Is that what you were saying?
Kind of, yeah, 4 to 6 in between email
Yeah,
4. If you've got a workflow, then in between email 4 and 6 is where we start to see engagement, which is quite often where people will have already optimized and pivoted their email campaign
I
before.
see.
So this is
Okay.
the thing about letting it run so that you can identify patterns. Because if you start tweaking because you didn't get any opens on the first one, didn't on the second, you potentially lose the opportunity that people need
Mm,
time. It may be that people start opening because they're like, who is Headley Media? They keep emailing me, but they're engaging, they're opening it, it's doing its job, right? And then we
yeah.
start seeing that they start clicking across the website, they start doing other things. And again, this is for our marketing campaigns, not for our clients' campaigns. This is us trying to engage marketing professionals in the B2B tech environment with best practice advice around content syndication, lead gen, ABM, this kind of stuff.
Sure. That's awesome. The final question, Freya, and it might have to be a bit quick fire. I've got time, but I'm conscious of your time. Came in from Ross Howard at Inbox Insights, and you did mention, you touched upon it earlier in the first question about using AI, but his question was how much do other ABMers and you, Freya, feel Gen AI is being overhyped? And his second question tying to that is like, how are you using AI to personalize your campaigns?
So I think everything around AI to a degree has been overhyped because we were promised that from tomorrow, everything would change and we'd be able, they're coming for our jobs, we're going to be replaceable, all of these things. But I do think that noise is starting to calm down now. So if we accept the overhype at the beginning, it is starting to calm down. And I am seeing a lot more content come through from individuals. In my experience, I've joined a few webinars and podcasts and things around Gen AI, and I actually completed a diploma in AI inside marketing and sales from Oxford University, like a crash course 6-week thing last year, which was really, really interesting about building the foundation of AI, but it didn't give you any practical tips. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to build a business case about how I would implement it at Headley Media, but without an understanding of actually how do I use these tools. And I do think that there are things that are starting to come through in the market. So ChatGPT, for example, there are companies that have started to introduce a version of ChatGPT, but it is specialized for design. It is specialized for copywriting. It is specialized. So we're starting to see those niches come through. And I think the perception of AI is starting to change, especially with Gen AI. It's a co-pilot. There's a reason that some people have got ahead and branded it a co-pilot, super smart initiative, because that is how we should look at AI. As someone that does a lot of research before doing prospecting and canvassing calls, as someone that does a lot of research around building our ABM list, AI is a great place to start doing that. So you can, for example, drop in 10 companies that are on your ideal customer profile list and ask it to expand it to include another 35 companies that look and feel like these, have similar company headcounts, have similar goals and challenges. And you can ask it for sourcing information and citing information
Mm-hmm.
as well. So if you are from a nervous position, then ask it to provide context as to where it got this information from. Because one thing AI can't do is it can't build the strategy for you, at least not yet. It can't answer all of your questions in the same way that a marketing professional can. It hasn't got the experience, the intuition, and the time spent that you or I have in this industry. But what it can do is speed up. It can speed up first drafts. It can speed up so many different variations of things, data research. It can work as that co pilot, and it can work really well for personalization as well. So, really, building out personas, for example. You can use AI to take the information that you've got on an account and put it in a format that is digestible, that is data driven, and again, citing where it got that information from your report, for example. You can also use it for analysis and reporting. So if you've got your QBRs, if you've got conversations with sales, for example, and you need to showcase what you've done within the ABM list, what's working and what's not, build the data, build the pivot tables, build all the information, and then chuck it into an AI tool and get it to produce a presentation that talks to a sales professional,
Mm-hmm.
that comes from the point of view and the perspective of a sales professional. It can help with those honest conversations because it can help you consider things that maybe in your marketing brain you wouldn't consider would be interesting for a salesperson. So yeah, I think there's so much further to go with AI, and I think marketing people are becoming even more savvy, identifying that when something is written by ChatGPT, it includes a long dash as opposed to a short dash, things like that. That when you're doing personalization, you need to be mindful of as a marketer, because it's become, rather than I'm being sold to and this is sales messaging, it's almost like, is this AI or is this not, from the buyer's point of view. So keep on board with the trends as to what people are identifying as AI. Because yeah, using it as a co-pilot, using it for proofing, using it for presentation creation, using it for research, first drafts, things like that. I think Gen AI is so valuable.
So you make a really interesting point on that. It's like, yeah, to win to some extent is, it's not about personal. It's about actually not sounding like Gen AI. So like true personalization can potentially win.
Humanization.
Humanization is a great word for it. Freya, that was incredible. The last thing I'll ask you is, do you have a question for our next guest?
I do indeed. I would love to understand how people believe that first party data is going to play out in the next year, especially with the shift away from third party, cookieless, all that side of things. What does first party data mean to you, is my first question. And how do you think first party data is going to play in the ABM field over 2025 and beyond?
That is a superb question for many reasons, and also because the last person I interviewed was big on third-party intent data, which is
Ooh.
obviously counterintuitive because I'm with you. I think first-party data over third-party, but that's because I don't have the experience in it. So I think I'd really love to know the answer to that question myself. So therefore, must be a good question. Freya, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Sam.